One thing in life that has always fascinated me and I've always been so curious about is the dark web. I'm such a fan of Criminal Minds, and one of the things is like they sell things on the dark web and stuff. So it's something I've always thought about. And then I recently came across this guy called Russ Ulbricht. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Creator of a really famous black market website called Silk Road. I'd heard of before. I think in my mind I thought Silk Road was like still a thing. I've never tried to access the dark web. I didn't even know how you would do it until researching for this video. I've never wanted to buy anything illegal, so I've never tried to access it. But anyway, so I came across this guy called Russ Ulbricht that got a pardon from Donald Trump, President of the United States. And I just kind of wondered, like, how or why did he get a pardon? What did he do? And then it just kind of set me down a whole rabbit hole of researching about Silk Road. Super fascinating. And there's so many twists and turns. There's so many government agents that are against it. The fact that he got pardoned, a lot of people don't think he should have went to jail. A lot of people think he was just doing, what he thought was right, letting people have the right to like own guns, the right to do whatever they want in America. That it should be a constitutional right. I hope I'm saying that right. Sometimes when it comes to like laws in America and stuff, I'm always not sure if I'm saying them right or wrong, but so he just believed it was a constitutional right that if someone wanted to own drugs, own guns, they should be allowed to. So that's where the story kind of starts. Craziest parts about this is I'd heard of Silk Road just somewhere. The name wasn't, I knew there was like obviously from 2000 years ago, which we'll get into, Silk Road, but then I knew there was something illegal to do with Silk Road as well. So I thought it was still a thing because I wasn't keeping up to date with like selling or buying drugs, I guess. So yeah, I was really confused by that Silk Road was only around for 2 years. Like it was only around for 2 years and it became the biggest illegal website. So we're going to get into everything about how he started it, why he started it, how he got caught. It was someone in the IRS. It wasn't the FBI, and all government agencies were researching, trying to figure out who this guy is. And it took an RIS guy, I hope I'm saying that right, that literally cracked the case in the end. So it's super fascinating. If you want to learn more about it, continue watching. Looking up about Ross's life, how he grew up in Texas. It seems like he grew up with a happy family, good family life. Every single article I have read or every single video I have watched about this refers to him as a scout, a Boy Scout. And I don't know if it's like to make him seem more like nerdy, or I don't know, just like add that little bit of like, he's a really normal guy. He was just a Boy Scout growing up. I just found it like, it hit me funny. I don't know why it bothered me so much that everyone just referred to him as a Boy Scout and not just like, he's just a dude, you know what I mean? He did physics in university. So there was nothing really to write home that like indicated that he grew up with a hard upbringing, because a lot of the time sometimes it's like that's the story, like a hard upbringing that made him want to go into setting up his own business essentially. So I think his family were really shocked when they found out that their son, who was just out of university for physics, had started the biggest illegal website in the world that was worth, if it actually did have a proper net worth, would have been worth $1.2 billion. Like, let that sink in. This guy did this in 2 years. 2 years. That is how much the drug industry and illegal goods is in illegal goods and drugs and services, like 1.2 billion. Would it be? Looking up everything, it seemed like Ross kind of wanted better for him life. He wanted to be like a bit more successful. He was a libertarian, so he kind of just felt like people had the right to buy and sell whatever they wanted. So I guess that came into effect. He was kind of anti-government as well. Belief that the government shouldn't have a say in every single thing that a person should buy. So that's why I wanted to come up with a website that could sell anything and everyone would have access to it. He had tried to come up with other businesses at points in his life, but nothing really stuck. He had making a marketplace like an Amazon, but for illegal goods. He didn't know how to, at first he didn't really know how to start it. or how to go about it, because he obviously can't just start selling drugs. You can't just do a drug Amazon. And at this time, like I know like weed and stuff is legal in the States now, but at this time like nothing was legal, not even weed or anything. And I'm not even sure, maybe other things are legal in certain states of America. I know there's one state, isn't there? There's like one state or one city that like any drugs allowed. But at the time, in the general of the US and stuff in the world, drugs, even just weed, wasn't legal. So he came across Tor. Now this is where I figured out this is how people access the black market, or the dark web, black market, dark web. Basically, you have to download a software which is Tor, and it hides your IP address. So when you go online, you're kind of hidden and no one can find you. I kind of because there's like NordVPN, and I think I hope I'm explaining this right. So because I kind of saw this, was it the same as NordVPN? But NordVPN, like people use when they're traveling so they can watch Big Bang Theory in a country that doesn't have Big Bang Theory. So once he found Tor, and once he realized he wanted to start this marketplace where people could buy and sell, I think his initial thing was drugs, because he must have been into drugs. So I think it was just kind of drugs was the initial thing that people would sell. The next roadblock he came into was figuring out how people will pay, because if you have the Tor, people can't access who's buying what. But if you pay through the bank, you're obviously going to have to figure out how people will pay without being caught, because you can't just send some guy $100 to get some weed. It's all going to be transactional and figured out. In the like mid 2010s, so by 2010 he had found out about Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is basically money that is just converted online. There's no transactions, there's no names, there's no nothing. You just send money through Bitcoin and no one knows it's you. I didn't look into that any further, because I feel like a lot of people probably do know about Bitcoin or have like heard about it, because it's been on so many different like TV shows and stuff. So you can transfer money anonymously. He could get paid, sellers could get paid, and buyers could buy drugs anonymously without anyone ever finding out in the government. Came up with the name Silk Road because 2,000 years ago in Asia, I hope I'm saying this right, there was a route, there was a big route that was for like trading, and I think it probably started with like silk, but that was called the Silk Road, and that's how people would trade like 2,000 years ago. That's how he came up with the name. So he started making the website from his bedroom. He lived with his girlfriend Julia, who he's still with today, by the way. For reasons, he didn't want a lot of people knowing, so he couldn't hire anyone to help him build the website, which obviously would backfire later on, that he didn't have someone who would give him the proper knowledge on how to start a website. If I was starting a website today for something legal, I wouldn't even know where to begin, so I'd have to like get someone to help me. So if you're starting one illegally, you'd have to do all the research yourself, and I guess then you would run into certain bumps about it as well, just to like, you know, make sure everything is done right and there's no glitches in the system. Girlfriend Julia, for obvious reasons, was a bit nervous about him doing this and getting caught, but he had reassured her that he wouldn't get caught because people would be paying in Bitcoin. When he first started the website, he had got the website up and running, and he thought, well, I have to have something on it to start it. I can't start a marketplace without selling anything, because, you know, Amazon started by selling books and then moved on to everything else. So he rented a old factory that was outside of the city, and he started growing mushrooms, and he literally did it by just like getting how to grow mushrooms for dummies. He started growing magic mushrooms, and that was the first product that was ever sold on Silk Road, which he actually made himself. By early 2011, the website was ready to go, and he had the mushrooms. This time he was also working in a bookshop. So he used to use the bookshop to post out the mushrooms, because they had the sealer thing, you know, to keep like the books fresh, so he could pack the mushrooms in there. They had packing bags and stuff in boxes, and he could print off shipping labels. But he obviously had to advertise it, because he couldn't just make a post on Facebook saying, here's this cool new website. Go on to some forums. So obviously he was part of like websites that would be anti-government. So he would go into websites like that and go, hey, have you heard about the website Silk Road? Has anyone heard about that? There was another website called Shroomery that I think would talk about like mushrooms, magic mushrooms. So he would go onto these websites and make posts basically just being like, hey, has anyone bought from Silk Road? Thinking of buying from Silk Road, blah, blah, blah. So people, the more he would advertise or just put the name Silk Road on these websites, people would ask questions and would hopefully, in his mind, go and look up Silk Road and see what they're selling. So within no time, there was loads of buyers and loads of sellers because people could just sign up to be a seller. Silk Road got 6.23% commission off every sale. And there was the rating system. So when you bought an item, you had to, we didn't have to, I guess you were just allowed, but when you bought an item and you like tested the product or whatever, you could write a review about the seller so that people could see if that seller was legit. Seller could write a review about the buyer, I guess, to make sure like that these were getting paid. They obviously had a lot of concerns about this because someone started selling heroin, someone had died by this point, and then there was like the ratings. And Julia had said, well, what about if someone gets drugs and they die? And Ross had said to her, well, if someone gets bad drugs, they'll just write a bad review. And she said, well, not if they die. So she was obviously quite concerned because I think she was obviously okay with like the selling of drugs and stuff. But I think when it came to like hardcore drugs, or at one point there was like a gun put in and stuff. So I think it's that whole thing, because she made a point to him of saying like, if someone's trying to buy a gun illegally when it's legal in America for anybody to own a gun, like why would someone have to buy it illegally and not have it traced back to them? So I think she was kind of ticking all these questions in her mind. Hard for him to dispute, but he was just on the side of, not justifying him, but he was just on the side of like, people should be able to do what they want. Like people should be able to buy and sell whatever they want, and that's the world we should live in. And by this time, it was obviously open a couple of months, so the government were obviously trying to find it. Silk Road was talked on newspapers, TVs, the government was watching, but because of the tour, the government couldn't access who was in charge of the website because they couldn't access his IP address. Ross was kind of doing it full time. I think he had told his family he was in like stock exchange or market, so when he was on his computer quite a lot, they just thought he was trading or something. And I guess if he was making more money and his lifestyle improved, although I don't think he spent a lot of money, because we'll get into that, but he had a reason of going, well, no, I'm making good money from the stocks. So Julia was not okay, especially when like heroin started getting sold and guns. But Ross just reassured her that it's people's rights, it's a human right to be able to do what you want and buy what you want. Really was not okay with it at all. So after a day, her and Ross had an argument. Julia went over to her friend Erica and vented to her friend, as you do, but she ended up saying that Ross owns the site Silk Road. And not long after this, Erica had made a post on Facebook basically saying maybe the police would like to know about Ross Ulbricht's illegal drug website. So Ross had contacted her and said delete it, and she deleted it pretty quick. And I guess at the time, you probably wouldn't think like a dude that you went to school with like set up this website. It wouldn't even cross your mind. So if anyone did see it, and it would have only been her Facebook friends, they would have thought it was a joke. So apparently the night before this, Erica had just come back from the hospital because she had bought some drugs on Silk Road. And she had a bad trip from it. So she ended up in the hospital. So when she left the hospital, she went to Ross and Julia's apartment and had like an argument with them, I guess, kind of blaming them for like someone selling like dodgy drugs. And they all had a big argument. They kicked Erica out, so she went home, slept it off, and then obviously woke up and made this Facebook post and was really annoyed. But I think they all became cool about it in the end. So around this time, Julia and Ross kind of took a break. She wasn't against the website, but she was against what was being sold on the website. I think she was okay when it was just mushrooms or weed, but when it became more hardcore stuff, she just couldn't take it. So they kind of took a break, and he went to Asia. He went to Australia and Asia traveling. He was like a multi-millionaire at this point. Like the website took off so quick and he was making so much money. 6.23% doesn't seem like a lot, but with the amount of products that were being sold, services, goods, everything, he was ranking in millions. Obviously he had to still run the website when he was away, and he would have to rely on internet cafes. And I don't know, I've been to Asia and stuff, and I think that like internet cafes and like most cafes have internet now. I don't know about 10 plus years ago if it was still good, but he had set up on his laptop a button, one of the keys, that if he pressed that, the screen would go blank. It would kind of lock it so that if anyone was looking. But he was obviously really paranoid, like traveling, because you'd meet new people and talk to people. Anybody that he was doing the biggest drug illegal website in the world. And at the time, he was a wanted man, but no one knew he was the wanted man because this website was global. So at this time, he was in Asia, and he got really freaked out because I think jail and stuff in Asia would be a little bit more hardcore than America, and I think he would possibly get the death sentence for selling or dealing drugs in parts of Asia. Like I said at the beginning, he had no idea what he was doing when he was setting up the website. He had no idea about coding, same as myself. He had no idea about like the ins and outs of the website. He built a pretty basic, easy to use website, but it meant people could access. So people were often getting into the website, holding it hostage and requesting like Bitcoin kind of as a ransom. That means he didn't know how to fix that. So he ended up hiring people that were like customers of Silk Road. So he hired, I think it was 10 customers. He ended up hiring 10 of his customers to be employees. And a lot of these people, from like what I've read, or I think Ross has said, like they didn't care about like getting paid. They just wanted a bit of a fuck you to the government. And kind of, you know, this is people's rights to do what they want in this world, and we should be able to have these websites. So it wasn't even about money for people that he hired. It was more about like they felt like they were on the right side of history, creating a website that anyone could use and buy and sell anything they wanted. I will say none of these other people that I talk about that are like his employees were ever caught, because they were all paid through Bitcoin, and they all talked through like the chat on the website. So everything was anonymous. They all had Tor in their browsers. So yeah, none of these other people were caught for what they did. But should they have been caught? That's the whole dispute at the end. List of things that started to get sold on the website. So there was like spy software, fake passports, fake cash, rocket launchers, poison, and then one of his moderators that would like make sure everything's getting sold okay on there asked Ross, like, someone wants to sell a kidney, and he let him just sell the kidney. There was body parts, and it said like it was gained consensually, but there was other body parts. There was like arms and legs, and there was all sorts being sold on this website as well. So I don't know. I try not to think about why someone would want to sell it, how they would get it, or why someone would want to buy it. I've watched enough Criminal Minds to know why or what people are doing with them. So no. The website kind of became a community of people that were against the government and just felt like people should have free will to do whatever they want. I'm writing my notes. But his name was, I think Ross had his name as admin on the website, and he ended up meeting a friend. He has said that it was extremely lonely because you couldn't just tell everyone your job. Like everyone, you didn't meet people at work. He couldn't go out. There's a little squirrels on the trees. Oh my God. Couldn't just make friends in a traditional sense, or like be honest with people. So I guess he was always holding back, and that would make you seem like a bit sketchy or weird. Anyway, so he made a friend through the website, and this guy had told him about Dread Pirate Roberts, DPR for short, and he changed his name to that. So that story kind of goes back to this movie that the head guy was called Dread Private Roberts, and the name will be given to the next person in charge. And his theory was, if he got caught, he could say, well, I was just an admin at one point, but I'm not an admin anymore. So that's how that kind of goes. 1 year, the website being open, it was making $500,000 a week. And then by the time year 2, it was like making $1 million. Ross's net worth was in the absolute millions. He was ranking it in. Like, he didn't come to play with this website. He was making so much money. And he said by the time he was 30, he wanted to be a billionaire. And actually, if he didn't get caught, he would have like totally done that. Because I think at this point, he was about 27. So if he hadn't got caught, 100% he would be a billionaire by now. His personal net worth would have been a billionaire, and Silk Road could have been worth tens of billions. Year 2 of the website was worth $1 billion, which would be called a unicorn business. There's an article from Australia, a news article, that basically there was some teenagers bought drugs from Silk Road, and it came from China, and it had dodgy ingredients in it because it wasn't made in a proper lab. And these kids took the drugs, and one of them felt extremely funny from it and jumped off his balcony from a hotel and died. And obviously that put a lot of pressure on like the FBI and every government in the world to figure out who was running Silk Road and how to stop it, because it was now actually just killing people. And I think sometimes there was obviously so many people before this that would have got hurt, or would have like died from the drugs. But sometimes it takes a big storyline, like, you know, like a teenager, that how easy it is, or how easy it was for a teenagers to go out and buy the drugs. But the IRS agent, Gary Alford, that's his name, he works for the IRS, and he actually was one of the main people to crack the code. The FBI couldn't do it. So a couple of details about Gary is his job is actually looking into money laundering. So he was somewhat involved in this kind of case because it was to do with money and stuff. But one of the things that kept coming up is he is so detailed oriented. Like he reads everything 3 or 4 times. He goes over everything back and forth to make sure he has every detail possible before he moves on to the next bit of anything. Thought about thinking outside the box, and he decided to look into when was Silk Road first posted online. Because again, with any website, like when you look up something, you have to be able to advertise and post about it. So he decided to find out when Silk Road was first ever advertised online, and on what website, and who made that post. Whoever made the first post about Silk Road is probably the person that owns the website. So he was really smart. So through his records, he found someone called Altoid posted on the Shroomery, and he posted on Bitcoin Talk, and there was a couple of other forums, but it was always the name Altoid. And then a couple of months before any of these posts were made about, sorry, there's a hair, you know when you have like a hair stuck on your face? A couple of months before he posted about Silk Road, there was a post made on a job website looking for someone talking about Bitcoin, and they wanted some help with Bitcoin and a setup, and the name was Russ Albright. So that's how he figured it all out. He just went back through Google and figured it all out that way. And I think when he had first found out this information, he had went to his colleagues, and they kind of said, like, you know, that's not enough information to go off. But because he worked for the IRS and he didn't work for like the FBI or whatever, he wasn't kept 100% in the loop about the situation. So he kind of just went to the FBI to tell them all the information he had found at this point. Looked up Ross online to see, you know, just what's his trail of history, you know. And then he had seen that he had obviously made posts about being against the government. So that was obviously one thing that Gary noticed, that like this guy is always writing about not wanting to follow the government, that everyone should be free to do what they want. And he had seen on a forum that Ross had talked about the government, and his name was Ross Albright, but then he changed it a minute later to Frosty. So everything you do online can be completely tracked. Never forget that. You can always track everything back. So around this time, Gary decided to go to the FBI and tell him everything they had found. And there was a thing about Ross having fake IDs in his apartment, and he got caught by the police and they let him off on a warning. So they kind of had him in the system to look up. He went in, said his bit of information about Ross. The FBI were like, oh, actually, he was caught with fake IDs recently. That's a bit sketchy. And now we have Gary from the IRS coming in telling us that he's even more sketchy, and he has all this evidence. So it was all piecing together. And the next bit of the story is awkward, because when you have a Tor on your phone, laptop, whatever, you're not meant to be able, the police, the FBI, no government official should be able to access your account or your name, your IP address, because you have a Tor. But somehow they overrode it. And I think that is where the whole dispute is in, like, should he have been caught? Because there's obviously lots of people that believe that the website should be allowed to happen. People should have the right to buy and sell whatever they want, as long as they're over 18 or whatever. But if the FBI found them, how do they find them when they're not meant to be able to access an IP address that is secure under a Tor? FBI had got to the point of being able to access the IP address, and they had the name Dread Private Roberts, but they didn't have Ross's name. They couldn't access that information fully. They realized that the last place it had been logged in was in an internet cafe. So because if it's blocked, you can't tell where in the world that person is setting up the website, but you can tell where the last time it was logged in. So they found out it was an internet cafe. And then Gary comes in, tells them all this information, and they figure out that the last place it was logged in an internet cafe, Ross lives a couple of blocks away. Bit is how they actually found him. So obviously they didn't know much about Ross, but I think they thought he was obviously like smarter. He must have known about computers and everything. But they realized that if they caught Ross and he had his laptop open, they knew he would probably turn it off and they would never be able to get back into the laptop. So they needed to catch him with the laptop open and while he was on the actual website working on it. Because if they didn't, they could have caught him. He could have locked them out and said, that's not my laptop, or, you know, someone's forced me to do this, I'm not ahead of it, blah, blah, blah. He would have got away with it a lot more. Even though he still kind of got away with it, but we'll get into that in a second. So they decided to catch him. They needed to catch him red-handed. So on October 1st, 2013, Ross went into a cafe. I don't know if it's the same one as before, but he went in. And because he didn't like when people could access or could see him on his laptop, he couldn't be somewhere that was overly busy because people would be able to look over and see. So he went in, noticed it was busy, and decided he needed to try somewhere else. So he decided to go to the library, to the local public library. And I guess Ross didn't know that all the people in the library were actually FBI agents. Movie that kind of shows, well, there's the movie, but then there's also actually the CCTV of it actually happening. You can actually watch, which is so fascinating how it's done. I explain like a little because it's like, I'll play it here hopefully. So he was like doing his thing on his laptop, and then there was a couple behind him that started arguing. So what would you do? You obviously turn around, and as he turned around to look at the people arguing, another woman kind of beside him grabbed his laptop, and you can see him reach out to try get his laptop back. And he couldn't close anything. Everything was open. So he couldn't deny anything. He was sitting on the laptop and they got it open. And that is how they caught him in the end. And you kind of think back and you think there's so many little things that if Gary from the IRS was not involved in this scenario, in this story, he wouldn't have got caught. Because the FBI probably wouldn't have found her. Maybe it would have took longer. He would have been able to cover up. But I think if he had got someone else involved with him to hide his name when he was like posting about looking about Bitcoin, and when he was like trying to find out, like post about the website, he would have got away with it. So it's so fascinating. So go Gary, because he saved the day. So the next bit of this is just about some government officials that were slightly corrupt in this. I'm not going to go too much into it, but it was kind of involved, so I thought I'd go with it. So Carl is a government agent, and he was selling information to Ross for months, and he got $700,000 in payment. And Carl thought he would never get caught because he was getting paid in Bitcoin, and that's how he thought he'd get away with it. So Curtis was a guy who was working for Ross, and he got arrested to do with some cocaine. But Ross had told Carl that Curtis had robbed money off him. So Carla told Ross, if you give me 40k now and 40k after, I'll get Curtis killed in jail. He didn't get Curtis killed in jail. He just staged photos. I haven't seen the photos, so I presume maybe he just got a photo of him lying down or something, or like punched him and his nose was bleeding or whatever. But he got staged photos of Curtis that looked like he was dead. So Ross had paid this guy $80,000 to kill this guy, but he didn't. There was also a hit on 5 other guys, but no one was murdered, like involved in trying to rob the website because the shields weren't up like they should have been on a website like that. There was people always robbing and stuff. So there was 5 people that Ross had put a hit on. Obviously, none of them got killed, so he couldn't get done for murder, but I think he could get done for attempted murder at the time. And the government agents, there was 2 government agents involved, and they each got 6 years. What happened to Ross? His lawyer said it was a social experiment. He was not Dread Pirate Roberts, and he had sold the site at some point. But he was caught with the login and everything, and that was the whole point of it, that if they didn't catch him actually logged in, they wouldn't have been able to do it. to get caught with an illegal website, or is he the first one that the government wanted to make an example out of? Because he was found guilty. He got 2 life sentences and 40 years. Craziest parts about this, that if he wasn't caught, he would be worth tens of millions. The website would be worth billions upon billions if he wasn't caught, and it was still open today in 2025. I'm recording this October 25. Not sure when it will get posted, but he would have been worth so much more. Imagine, after 2 years, the company was worth $1 billion. So after 10 years, it would have been worth what, like 5 billion or more, like just, and it would have grown and got bigger. Seems like Ross just wanted freedom, wanted people to be free. They wanted them to be able to post, say, and do what they want, which is like where the hard part in this, because I think from my point of view, I can look at it and go, selling something like weed online, it shouldn't be as bad. But when he said yes to people selling kidneys, body parts, drugs like heroin, selling guns, I think when, especially like if in America, when you can, I could, if I was an American citizen, I could go in and just buy a gun in the morning. But if I couldn't, there had to be some reason, and then it'd be sketchy. Or if I didn't want any paper trail for the gun, that has to seem really sketchy as well. So I think that's where he lost me, that at the beginning of this, it was just a guy that wanted to be able to buy and sell like mushrooms and weed. But to get to the hardcore stuff, I think that's where the problem is. And then there was a Silk Road 2.0, which lasted 1 year before that person got caught. Didn't look into their story or if they were arrested or how much time they got. I was already exhausted after researching to this far. But this story is just today, which really brought me up to this point. So in January of this year, Donald Trump pardoned him and he was set free. And since then he has gone on to do speeches about Bitcoin, about like people's rights. He is still with Julia. I don't know at what point they got back together, but he was in jail for what, like 10 years or something, and he got pardoned. So yeah, there was a lot of pressure put on Donald Trump to pardon him because, you know, freedom of speech, and I guess that's what Donald Trump is all about to a certain degree. But he's like 10,000 followers on Instagram, and he talks a lot on there. In conclusion, was it right? Was it wrong? Should he got more time? Should he got less time? I think the problem is Ross allowed other things to be sold because he had the right to decline a service or a good that was being sold on the website. So I think that was the main problem in it, that if he had said no to a certain amount of items, you know what I mean, like the party packs, what happened after that when the kids died? Did he stop them party packs being sold? When body parts were being sold, did he not even think of looking into what was happening and just believe this guy that said, yeah, I got them consensually? I think that's the problem in it for most people. There is the whole thing of being able to do what you want and you're a human and it's your right, of speech and stuff. So I think that's where he went wrong, and he probably would have a lot more people on his side. But it is pretty 50-50. Like when I was looking at like his Instagram comments, and I might put them up, like people are all for him and they want him to start a new website. And yeah, I guess it's just crazy how the world would have changed while he was in there, and for him to come out as like almost a celebrity was crazy. And people petitioned, like there was a big petition with a lot of signatures to get this guy out. So like the government was put under pressure to bring him out. So yeah, do I think it's right or it's wrong? I don't know. I'm not the judge of that. I think certain products were wrong, but then there's other people that would think weed is even wrong, but I don't think that's as wrong as a body part. Like, but yeah. So, I mean, it's a whole debate and it's a whole topic that everyone could keep talking about and decide what they think is right and wrong, because everyone has a different view on it. But let me know what you think in the comments below. If there's a bit of information you know about this story that I don't, please comment it below, because there are so many little twists and turns in the story that I would just be here for hours talking. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if there's a topic you want me to talk about soon. I haven't really got any more planned just yet. This is the last one I'm recording for now, and I'm going to start looking up some other topics that are fun. I like learning about different brands and stuff, which is cool, so I might get into that. I kind of want to keep it quite gender neutral, that people will want to read about all kinds of stories. So let me know what you want to learn about and I'll research it for you. Thanks for watching.